Welcome back. Hey, my friends. Thanks for joining me for another episode Behind the Walls with your girl, Anna B. I appreciate all the love and support on that last video. I just have to let y'all know I do not pay attention to the negativity within the comments, especially given the type of content this is. We already talking about negative actions and sadness. Why pay attention to the haters or any additional negativity? But again, thank you to all of my supporters, day ones, in betweens. Y'all all day ones. Y'all all my friends. We are diving into the cases in the state of Illinois. Don't forget to drop those comments. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Let's get into it.
Cook County Judge Evelyn Clay said that Helen Ford was beyond rehabilitation and showed no remorse. Helen Ford showed very little emotion as that outraged judge sentenced her to life in prison. Now, Helen Ford's family was visibly upset as they left the courtroom just moments after the judge sentenced Helen Ford to natural life in prison for the July 2013 death of her granddaughter. The third grader's body was found covered with blunt force injuries and cuts. Now, through victims' impact statements, a counselor as well as a clerk at Gizzell's school and her aunt talked about how loving the straight-A student was. Prosecutors had said that the girl was strangled and beaten to death, but was already dying because of kidney failure because of a lack of food and water. Now, in contrast, Ford's public defenders said that the grandmother was simply overwhelmed and asked the court to show mercy on the ailing grandmother who's been plagued with several medical conditions. Nearly a dozen of Ford's relatives spoke on her behalf, either in court or through letters.
Where was this anger and energy for Gizzell? The beautiful Gizzell Ford, who was 8 years old, kept a diary in which prosecutors described as being striped with rainbows. Inside, she wrote using a pink marker. Her initial entries were typical of a third grader, mentioning things like jump rope, school teachers, clothes, and friends. But in the summer of 2013, her life and diary entries took a dark turn. She started documenting the abuse she endured at the hands of her grandmother, Helen. I know if I be good and do everything I'm told, I won't have to do punishments, Gizzell wrote, describing how she had been forced to squat for hours and told to stand in one place for an hour or two. Writing that she was looking forward to school starting again in August when she would be out of the house of horror she was placed in. I am going to be a beautiful, smart, and good young lady, she wrote. I can do anything I put my smart mind to. People say I'm smart and courageous and beautiful. I hope that I don't mess up today because I really want to be able to just sit down, watch TV, talk, and play with everybody. I am going to be great all day. Gizzell would later write, not true. I failed. Her last diary entry was written on July 11, 2013. I hate this life because now I'm in super big trouble. Gizzell was pronounced dead the next day. Her body discovered in her grandmother's trash-filled, roach-infested apartment, strangled and badly beaten. Helen was not the only one to blame. Her son, Gizzell's father, Andre Ford, was arrested and charged with his daughter's murder as well. Investigators said Andre ordered the attacks and abuse that were fulfilled by his mother. Andre died in 2014 while in custody. He had a rare skin disease that caused him to have a heart attack. During Helen's trial, cell phone footage was played that showed Helen and Andre berating terrified Gizzell for breaking house rules as she stood there silent with a sock in her mouth. Gizzell's 10-year-old half-brother took the stand, testifying about the abuse that he too received at the hands of Helen. As he described his little sister, he cried, saying she was very nice. She liked to make friends. She liked to play. Not even a month before Gizzell died, a DCFS investigator visited Helen's apartment. The investigator reported nothing out of the ordinary but a cluttered home. A Cook County judge had awarded temporary custody of Gizzell to her father, an unemployed felon, 8 months before her death because he claimed her mother was homeless. Reportedly, allegations of molestation against the boyfriend of Gizzell's mother were also made. Gizzell was examined. A healing loop mark was an injury observed during that examination, yet again, no one reported the obvious, visible signs of abuse, not even the doctor who had a duty to do so. Helen's public defender characterized Helen as overworked, overwhelmed, and overcome, with the daily responsibilities of taking care of a bedridden son and 3 grandchildren. Disgustingly, she also attempted to argue that Gizelle's injuries were self-inflicted, saying that the smart 8-year-old was a tragically troubled young lady and that she coped by injuring herself. The judge rejected the overwhelmed claims made by both Helen's defense and her family members. Before handing down the life sentence, Judge Evelyn Clay said, Helen did know how to say no to Gizzell. No water, no food, no sleep, no praise. She did not know how to say yes to Gizzell. She did not say yes to the basic requirements of human care. Helen was remanded into the custody of the Illinois Department of Corrections, and she's been residing at the Logan Correctional Center since her admission in June of 2017. Gizelle's mother and grandfather filed a civil lawsuit against the state. The civil suit claims the DCFS caseworker who visited Helen's apartment ignored obvious signs of abuse. A jury awarded $48 million to Gizelle's family, finding, in fact, that the Stroger Hospital doctor that examined her after her placement with her father and grandmother was negligent for failing to report signs of abuse. The State Department of Child and Family Services, which investigated the allegations against Gizelle's mother and failed to note Gizelle's injuries or unsafe conditions in the home Andre Ford shared with his mother, was dismissed from the case. So Cook County was on the hook for footing the payout. Gizzell, you did not fail. The system and your family failed you. Happy that you are no longer in pain, but so very sorry that your life was ended too soon. Rest in peace to Gizzell Ford. Four broke young adults who wanted cigarettes, drugs, and liquor came up with a plot that led to robbery and murder, leaving 2 young men, both 22 years old, dead. Eric Glover and Terrence Rankins were lured to this house on North Hickory Street in Joliet in January of 2013. I think you need to know this is one of the most brutal, heinous, really upsetting things that in 27 years of law enforcement, it is the worst thing I've come across in my career. Former Police Chief Mike Trafton told Joliet Patch, police was made aware of the double homicide after receiving a tip that they would find 2 dead bodies at the home of Alyssa Massaro, longtime friend of Bethany McKee. Bethany knew Terrence and told her friends Alyssa, Joshua Minor, and Adam Landerman that he carried cash with him and agreed to lure him and Eric to the residence.
She's the reason he was there. It would have never happened if she hadn't have brought him there.
Police found the men's bodies, as reported, with bags tied around their head. One bound, the other looked as though he had been bound prior to police's discovery. Shockingly, Alyssa, Joshua, and Adam were still at the residence. They were arrested. Bethany was too taken into custody. She was apprehended during a traffic stop in Kankakee. It was her father who tipped the police. Adam Landerman reportedly told police that after they all, including the victims, downed a bottle of tequila, he and Joshua initiated the attack. Adam, the son of a police sergeant, throttled Eric while Joshua strangled Terrence. During police interviews, all suspects reported that there were plans to dismember Eric and Terrence, along with other very disturbing acts, but instead, they continued to party amongst the dead bodies of Eric and Terrence. In 2014, 20-year-old Alyssa pleaded guilty to 2 counts of robbery and 2 counts of concealment of a homicide. She was expected to testify truthfully against each of her 3 co-defendants. However, the state only called her to testify against Bethany. Alyssa received a 10-year sentence, but she was released in 2018, not even serving half of her 10-year sentence. Bethany McKee was the first to stand trial. She chose to face the judge, not a jury, and not to testify on her own behalf. Her defense attorneys tried arguing that she did not physically harm either Eric or Terrence, that she was mentally ill, had been abducted into a sex trafficking ring at 14, and had a history of substance drug abuse. In August of 2014, Judge Gerald Kinney found her guilty, saying that her actions show a stunning lack of respect for human life, as well as a stunning lack of concern for the consequences of taking 2 human lives. Noting that instead of leaving or reporting the crimes, she held a lamp so that the bags could be placed over Eric and Terrence's heads. She was later sentenced, though Judge Kinney was critical of the state's sentencing guidelines, saying if given discretion, he would impose a sentence that was significant but would not be the maximum. So as the state mandates, he sentenced her to natural life in prison.
Will County got it right today. It was justice for Terrence today.
I was worried, couldn't sleep. I was freaking out. But God did his job.
I'm just glad that she got the time that she deserved. So she deserved it. She set it all up and stuff like that, so she deserved the time that she get.
As of February 2025, Bethany's been incarcerated for 11 years. She and her attorneys are hopeful in her appeal process. They have filed their initial petition and are awaiting a response from the state of Illinois. Her next court appearance will be February 28th, 2025. She remains at the Logan Correctional Center. Joshua Minor, labeled the mastermind, was found guilty in November of 2014. He was convicted on 6 counts of first-degree murder. He was too given a natural life sentence. While serving out his life sentence at the Western Illinois Correctional Center, Joshua's cellmate, 44-year-old Andrew Ortega, was found dead. In January 2025, the Brown County State's Attorney's Office filed a first-degree murder charge against 36-year-old Joshua Minor, alleging he strangled Andrew to death. He's scheduled to have his first court appearance in April. Adam Landerman, he was the only defendant that chose to take his case before a jury. His public defender described him as a scared 19-year-old kid who allowed himself to be intimidated and manipulated by an older ringleader. The Will County jury took 90 minutes to find Adam guilty. He as well was sentenced to spend the rest of his natural life in the Illinois Department of Corrections. 2 men dead, 2 men, 1 woman doing life. So many families impacted, all for $120. Rest in peace to Eric Glover and Terrence Rankins. Condolences to both of their families. On January 24th, 2021, the life of 70-year-old Willow Banks was taken by her 29-year-old mother, Hazel Ivy, at their public housing apartment on McKnight Street in Galesburg. Around 3:30 a.m., Hazel sent a photo of Willow's body to someone she knew, who then alerted authorities. Police responded to the apartment, Hazel answering the door in her underwear, and said, "She's upstairs." A jagged knife was found in Willow's bedroom, blood found on her bed and the hallway floor from Willow's room to Hazel's. Reports state that Hazel told authorities, when questioned, that she snapped. The forensic pathologist who performed Willow's autopsy testified that she died from multiple stab wounds and blunt force trauma to the back of her head. The autopsy also revealed the 7-year-old girl had older injuries on her body. The Knox County State Prosecutor stated multiple wounds to Willow's face was evidence of torture and intended on seeking a life sentence. Willow was not registered at school at the time of her death, and her siblings were removed by DCFS. Hazel entered a plea of not guilty to the initial 2 counts of first-degree murder. However, on September 29, 2022, she pleaded guilty but mentally ill to 1 count. In exchange for the plea, the state agreed to recommend a sentence of 20 to 53 years in prison. She was sentenced to the max, 53 years. Hazel had a small victory in July 2024 when the 4th District Appellate Court reversed the circuit court's denial of a motion to reconsider her sentence. The celebration was short-lived following a hearing before the same judge who sentenced her. Judge Andrew Doyle ruled that the 53-year sentence will stand and remanded her back into the custody of Illinois' Department of Corrections. She will serve 100% of her time, and she too is at the Logan Correctional Center. Rest in peace to the precious Willow Banks. In 2021, Maquisha Ramey was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder in connection with the shooting death of Rachel Likes. Maquisha pled not guilty. Maquisha had recently broken up with her boyfriend, Michael Hubbard, left town traveling to Mississippi to visit family. While there, she decided to purchase a gun. She returned to Galesburg, decided to disguise herself with a wig, a hoodie, and a mask, and drove to Michael's house, where she encountered Rachel, Michael's new girlfriend, sitting in her vehicle. Maquisha shoots and kills Rachel before fleeing. Rachel's car was hit 9 times. 3 of those bullets hit her. Her young son was in the car at the time. Fortunately, he was not physically harmed. Maquisha, who was thought to still be in Mississippi, was actually out on parole when she popped up at her ex's house and shot and killed Rachel in a drive-by style shooting. Maquisha's murder trial commenced the following year. She took the stand in her own defense, testifying that she did not know Rachel would be outside of Michael's house, saying that after she arrived, she got into an argument with Michael and picked up the firearm which was on her passenger seat. She said the gun went off at least 3 or 4 times when he grabbed it out of her hand. She also testified that she got back in her vehicle and drove off. As she was leaving, she claimed to have heard additional gunshots. Police said that her version of events, changed during their investigation. It took the jury 3 hours to decide she was guilty on all 3 counts of murder. She was sentenced on March 30th, 2022. At that hearing, she read from a statement, in part, which said, "I took a life. I'm sorry I can't undo that. To the Likes family, my apologies for taking a piece of you away. I'm standing here taking full responsibility for my actions." After she read her statement, the prosecutor argued that she lacked remorse and that she will say anything to get away with Rachel's murder, adding that this was an execution. You now know that she lied in her testimony to the jury. Before handing down her sentence, the judge noted that Maquisha had violated her parole when she obtained the gun in Mississippi, and that even though she'd done some positive in the past, she fired that gun with no regard to Rachel's 4-year-old son or the possibility of the bullets hitting anyone else. The murder happened in broad daylight. Maquisha was sentenced to serve 65 years in the Illinois Department of Corrections, 35 years for the murder, and another 30 for the gun enhancement. She did receive 450 days credit as time served, but she will have to serve 100% of that 65-year sentence. A notice of appeal was filed by her attorney in October of 2022. July the following year, her sentence and conviction were both affirmed by the Appellate Court of Illinois' 4th District. Many blessings and condolences to the family of Rachel Likes, and may she continue to rest in peace. Ariana Colbert said a Carrie Ingram trainer was her best friend, but she found herself standing trial for her murder. Ariana shot and killed a Carrie as they fought over the return of a cable box in the courtyard of Champaign Park Apartments off Kenwood Road in Champaign, Illinois, back in October of 2021. A Carrie was shot once in her neck, perforating a major artery. She died shortly afterwards. Earlier in that day, a Carrie sold a Wi-Fi cable box of some kind to Ariana and her boyfriend Quincy Hayes for $15. Court records said she did so to raise money for her electric bill, which was disconnected at the time. Court documents state that a Carrie called the couple in the afternoon of that day after the transaction had been completed, asking for weed or money to buy weed. Quincy told her they didn't have either. She asked him to return the cable box so she could make some more fast money. Quincy declined. Throughout the remainder of the day, They went back and forth, arguing through text messages and phone calls, until Akeri came pounding on Quincy and Ariana's door while they and Quincy's 2 daughters were sleeping. Ariana proceeded to the door with the cable box to return it as they discussed, but Quincy was upset that Akeri came banging on his door while his daughters were sleeping, so he again refused to give the cable box back. All 3 wound up in the courtyard from the 3rd floor apartment. Punches were thrown between the women as Quincy attempted to break them up. A second tussle ensues. Ariana says her gun fell to the ground. She picked it up and shot towards Akeri once. Ariana and Quincy fled, going on the run the next day. They were arrested by U.S. Marshals in a hotel room outside of Chicago about 6 weeks later. Ariana would testify that she did not intend to kill or harm Akeri in any way. When asked why she shot in Akeri's direction, she responded, "I don't know. I don't think I thought. I did it." She said her friend was threatening to go get her brothers and return to continue fighting, and that alarmed her. She believed she, Quincy, and his children were in danger. Ariana was convicted by a jury in January of 2023. She was sentenced to 47 years in prison, just 2 more years than the minimum that the state requested for Akeri's murder. In 2019, Ariana was the winner of an Ackerman Scholarship, a scholarship offered since 2016 by Ackerman LLP to help young adults who have spent time in foster care. Ariana entered foster care at the age of 6. She aged out of the system and was attending the University of Illinois. Her goal was to work in the medical field. What a change of events. And speaking of change of events, friends, Ariana and her counsel team filed a timely appeal to the appellate courts, arguing that the trial court erred in refusing to instruct the jury on second-degree murder or involuntary manslaughter. The appellate court agreed, filing their decision to reverse Ariana's conviction and remanding the case back to circuit court for a new trial. The decision was filed on January 24th, 2025. Ariana returned back to Champaign County on February 26, 2025 for her first court appearance. Afterwards, she was booked into the Champaign County Correctional Center. Condolences to Akeri's family, and may she rest in peace.